So more times than not, a spiritual battle is often won before the battle itself, the actual battle even starts. And that'll make or break whether you're strong enough to go through that battle or whether you already failed beforehand. And more times often than not, in the actual battle itself of sexual impurity, temptations, strong sexual desires, we've already failed beforehand. Well, John, why have we already failed beforehand, you may ask? We've already failed beforehand because of our preparation. What things are we doing to prepare beforehand so when the actual battle itself comes, we're prepared? Are you actually putting on the full armor of God that God provides us with Himself? Are you staying rooted in the Word, studying the Word, not just for novels, not just for entertainment, not just to tell people you do it, but are you actually studying it for application? Are you actually biblically applying things to your that'll help you on this battle of lust and impurity? And oftentimes we're not. That's why we fail beforehand. For example, right? Anything we do in life, especially anything important we do in life. For example, say with a war, right? The actual war itself. The soldiers don't just throw on a uniform and go out and fight and then win the battle. That's not how it works. It's preparation that goes beforehand, whether that's weapons, training, whatever it is. These soldiers prepare beforehand different schemes and attacks of the enemy that might try to come their way. They prepare beforehand in many different ways, shapes, and forms. So when the actual battle itself comes, they're prepared and they'll be victorious in that battle. But oftentimes in our battles, we open the not only are we opening the door for sin, but sometimes we just not even preparing for it. Like sometimes, for example, right, we're not even putting gateways and different things in the way of our the things that we struggle with sexually. For example, some people may struggle with fornication outside of marriage, but what are you doing to actually not fornicate? Are you actually putting yourself in situations, not being in the same bed as somebody else, whether that's your partner or a random person? You shouldn't be doing that with either if you're not married to them, especially not somebody you don't even know, unequally yoked to, and the spiritual damage that can cause you with a partner that can cause spiritual damage too. But at least you know them. I'm not condoning that in any way, shape, or form. I'm just saying, at least it's not like a random person where you don't know what spirit they have. Hopefully, if you with your partner, you know what spirit they have. But nonetheless, beforehand, you have to prepare and not put yourself in those situations in the first place. And I use fornication as an example because a lot of people fall into fornication because why are you putting yourself into a club like atmosphere if you know that's something you struggle with? Why are you putting yourself one-on-one in a room, in a bed with your partner if you know you struggle with fornication before? Why are you exposing yourself to Tinder, Bumble, all these dating apps? This may be talking to you because I've been there. Trust me, I know. Saying you don't want to fornicate, but yet you've doing all these things that could potentially open you up to fornication. You're feeding the spirit man with music that talks about sexual stuff outside of the context of marriage. I was listening to a song the other day, and it was talking about taking the girl to the back, taking the girl to the back seat. Sorry, I'm thirsty. That's why my words all over the place. But taking the girl to the back seat and doing this stuff to her, a girl from college. And that's very wrong because that's fornication, and it wasn't that person's wife, but yet this is the stuff we consume watching TV shows. I know, for example, Power is one of those. I'm gonna just be real on this too. Power is one of those shows I used to watch, and then if it's a sex scene and it's like, ooh, that lady look attractive, I'm going back and rewatching the scene itself. And people may be like, oh, well, you're not watching, you actually doing it, but you're feeding your spirit these things that could open up the door to that fornication later on. That's going to put your mind in the cycle of fornication because now you saw that. That's all you're going to think about all night. Heck, you may even want to masturbate, ejaculate to it, and do all these different things, right? So fornication is just one of the examples, but it's many examples of things we do beforehand that aren't preparing us for the actual battle itself. And that's why oftentimes on this journey we fall. And I actually have two solutions. I'm not just going to give you the problem with no solution. There are two solutions that the Bible actually talks about. And it's in Matthew, I believe, chapter 26. I believe it's Matthew chapter 26. But when Jesus was praying in the Garden of Gethsemane before he was about to be taken captive, and the disciples were sleeping, and Jesus was in prayer, but he prayed 3 times and he would go back and the disciples would be sleeping, but they weren't prepared in that time. They weren't preparing beforehand. So when it was Christ's time to actually be taken captive, they weren't prepared. And oftentimes that's how we are. Oftentimes we sleep on the important things, and then when it's time for the actual battle itself, we aren't prepared beforehand. So we're aware of the battle being there, but we don't know how to overcome this battle because of what we didn't do beforehand. And I bring up Matthew, that chapter in Matthew, those verses with Christ in the Garden of Gethsemane, because he gave the 2 solutions, not me. Christ gave the 2 solutions for this, which is to watch and pray. And oftentimes in this journey, we're not watching or praying. To be honest, especially prayer. Like it's a lot of us who don't even pray every day. I try to pray every single day. Not saying like, because you can pray and your heart not be in the right place, but when you pray, you want your heart to be in the right place. You don't want to just quote things just to be like, oh, I got a prayer in today. Because I've done that. Like, oh, I just want to pray today just to say I pray, or I got to do this. Like, it should be an intimate time with connecting with the Father himself. And especially in this battle of lust, impurity, sexual desires, temptations, all this stuff, we have to be in prayer. Prayer is crucial, but also we have to watch. Watch comes before the prayer. We have to watch our surroundings. We have to watch where we're putting ourselves. We have to watch what we're consuming. We have to watch the things we allow into our spirit. We have to watch the way we talk. We have to watch what we're thinking, because as somebody who struggles severely with intrusive thoughts, it's important to do what you can to block those thoughts away. Because there are times, even though I've been pure in my journey, not looking at sexual stuff and not fornicating and doing all this stuff on my journey, I still struggle with the thoughts of those things. And sometimes the thoughts I'm able to and pray and go away, but when I don't put them in prayer, it's easy to meditate on those thoughts. And even though I'm not watching it, it's like I'm still feeling it, like I'm watching it in my head mentally rather than physically. And that's no better. That's no better. So we have to do what we can to shut those things down. We have to be watchful, because if we're not watchful enough, this stuff is easy to stick into our brain. Sometimes things stick in our brain and we're put on the path. We live in a sinful world. So even though we're not responsible for everything that's exposed to us, for example, I was exposed to pornography at a very early age, but I'm not responsible. I mean, I am responsible for how I handle it from this point out. Even though I was exposed to it, things were exposed to me that opened that door, and it led to the point where I was just watching and having feelings of wanting to act out the things, watching, doing all of this stuff. I had to come to this solution, and I had to realize, even though that was exposing me out of my control, I still have control over that problem, getting rid of that problem. Not saying I'm doing it on my own. Christ is helping me with that problem, but I'm saying I have to want to overcome that battle on my own, and you have to want to overcome it here and here. Are you trying to overcome it in those 2 places? Or are you still opening up doors? I talked about this in another video. Are you still opening up doors that aren't fully shut in that? You have to try your best to fully shut it. I'm not saying you're not going to fall. Am I perfect every day on this journey? No. I still may scroll past stuff. I still may look at it. I still may scroll past my pictures of my partner, not sexually appropriate pictures, but she's just wearing clothes and I may see a feature and it's like, it still happens to me. Don't get me wrong, but I am doing what I can to overcome that and to prepare myself so when these battles do come, I'm able to resist it. I'm preparing myself daily. I fall down in here sometimes, even though I'm not doing anything physically here. And here sometimes I'm still led astray, because at the end of the day, we still in the fleshly body. So our flesh is going to take us away at times, but we're not slaves to the flesh. We're not dogs that return back to our own vomit. We go the opposite way. We're led by Christ. We're new creations. We're new creatures. So we have to follow that path of being new creatures and new creations. We have to watch and we have to pray. And that's how we are able to overcome this battle, this strong, strong battle. But if we don't do those things, if we aren't preparing beforehand, then we're going to continue to struggle with this problem. And this problem is just going to be a continuous cycle of, oh, I don't want to do this, go to do it. Oh, I don't want to do this, go do it. Oh, I don't want to go do this, or I don't want to do this, go do this. Because your heart can be in the right place at one point, but you didn't prepare yourself beforehand, so you fall. For example, when Peter said, I would die for you, Christ, I'm sure Peter meant it. He meant it in that moment. He would die for Christ, but he didn't prepare himself beforehand. He wasn't watchful and praying at the times of need. So when that time did come, where he was pressured about knowing Jesus, and he denied it 3 times, and the rooster crowed, because he didn't prepare beforehand. But thankfully, later on down the road, obviously Peter will overcome that and be one of the most powerful men of God in the Bible. But I just give that example to say that we have to be watchful at all times. We have to pray. We have to stay in prayer when these things come. Is this journey going to be perfect? No, we're not perfect, but Christ is perfect, and we have to strive to be like that. And we fall daily, but we pick ourselves back up on this journey. We fall daily, but we pick ourselves back up and rise. And that's how we will be able to overcome this battle. That's how we will be able to not fall into the same traps that we do before. So are you preparing yourself for the battle beforehand, or are you waiting until the battle itself comes, the actual battle, and you're not prepared and you're just like, oh, I'm gonna try to fight it out? It's not a high success rate. It's not, I'm not even gonna edit that out. But it's not a high success rate versus the contrary, where you are actually doing things to prepare before that battle beforehand. So when these temptations, when these moments where a woman may try to come to you, or for a woman, a man may try to come to you, you're able to resist that. Even if it may be tempting, your flesh may be tempted, you're strong in the spirit to shun that away and not even, or when you scroll past something, you have the power to scroll and not actually become fixated on it. Or when you hear your favorite song, or your old favorite song, my bad, if you hear your old favorite song that was secular and talked about that sexual stuff and all of this, you don't like, oh, let me listen to it one more time. You actually pass it, because you know what listen that could do, and the door that could open up, not just in the future, but maybe that day. And then that may open the door for Satan and his demons to come and try to tempt you even harder that day. He's trying to tempt us every day, but when we open up doors and different things, when we don't put gateways and processes in the process of things, then that's when he comes even harder. That's why when you in these battles, you like, oh, I may feel all right, but then all of a sudden it's like, boom, because maybe you even open up yourself to something, expose yourself to something you weren't even aware of. You don't even know. So as I said, are you preparing for the battle beforehand, or are you not? It's as simple as that. And we got to prepare for the battle beforehand. So yeah.